Counter. It sounds kind of negative, doesn't it? I'm going to counter your point on that. In real estate, however, a counter is very positive. A counter offer is something that you always want to think about when you are a seller. And a counter offer is something you may receive as a buyer. So what is a counter offer and why is it good? Why am I telling you that it's positive? That's what we're going to talk about today, and we're starting right now. I'm Sherri Green with Coldwell Banker. Welcome to my YouTube channel that guides home sellers and home buyers in Washington, D.C. and Northern Virginia. When you're selling your house and a buyer presents you with an offer, you may not want to accept it outright. You may not want to reject it outright. You may see some of the value in that offer. There's always value in every offer. Why do I say that? You've got a willing buyer willing to buy your house. You want to sell, they want to buy. Here's a contract. A counteroffer helps to make that contract work for both parties. So the buyer has presented you with their offer. It may not be exactly right for you as the seller. So what do? You counter. And that's what we're going to talk about today, counter offer. I did a video about a year ago called Counter Culture, and I thought it was kind of a cheeky way to talk about the need to make counter offers. There are times when sellers get an offer and they are frustrated at what they've received and they don't even want to respond to the buyer. And I always advise my clients, they don't always take the advice, but I always advise them to counter. And the reason is just what I said a minute ago. You are a seller who wants to sell. They are a buyer who wants to buy. Perhaps on the first shot, you're not where both of you need to be, and a counter can get you there. A counter says, I'm not going to reject your offer outright. I'm not going to accept it outright, but I'm willing to talk. And that's what a counter offer is. It is the seller taking the offer the buyer has sent and changing some of the terms and sending that offer back. You presented me with an offer. I thank you. And here are some ways that I can get this offer to work for me as well as you potentially. Now, when you go to counter, there are some things that you want to think about. Number one is, what terms are you going to counter? Everybody immediately thinks of price, and certainly price is typically the most important thing for almost anyone. Price is important because the price that you get for selling your house helps to cover your transfer taxes and potentially your move and the commission to pay the agents who've worked on the project from start to finish and gotten you all the way to closing. And it's a good indication of the job well done of maintaining your house, but it's also an indication of the market. So price is often very important for most sellers. Timing can also be important, so think about that. Do you need to close sooner? Do you need to close later? Perhaps your mover isn't coming for another 35 days, so you need 40 to get out and then do a little broom cleaning before you hand those keys over. Maybe the home inspection period is just way too long. You're going to allow the buyer to do a home inspection, but maybe they don't need 15 days. Maybe we could get that done in 7. So think about those terms and the ways to counter that offer. Another thing that a buyer may ask for is all of your furniture, or maybe all of the outdoor furniture. Maybe you don't need some of it. Maybe you don't want to pack and move some of it, and maybe that's something that you could negotiate. That could also go back in that counter offer. Another piece you might want to think about countering is the earnest money deposit. This is the good faith deposit that a buyer puts down to say, I'm going to buy your house. I'm going to follow the terms of this contract to the letter, and if I don't, then this is the money you can have for your pain and suffering, let's call it. If you're selling $1 million house and your buyer puts down a $1,000 EMD, that may not look serious to you as the seller. $1,000 is a small amount of money to lose on $1 million purchase. I'm not saying $1,000 is small, but in the grand scheme of the purchase of $1 million, it is small. In the DC and Northern Virginia area, 3 to 5% is usually pretty typical. Some Virginia markets do lower EMDs, but I always advise my clients, when they're the buyers, to present a very strong EMD. Show how serious you are, that you're not going to leave the contract, and that you're going to follow the letter of the contract to a T. So the first thing you want to do with a counteroffer is think about the terms that you can propose that are different than what you received, and get those back in writing. It's often a good idea when it's time to counter for the two agents to get together on a phone call and talk about that. But I will tell you this, you can talk as much as you want. There is nothing in real estate that is real and that is firm until it is written down and signed by both parties. So do some verbal negotiations and then put pen to paper and counter that buyer's offer. The second thing I want you to think about when you go to counter is stopping and taking a deep breath. Whew. It's an emotional experience to sell and buy a property in almost every case, sometimes even when it's an investment. And sometimes you get that offer, or as a buyer you get the counter offer, and it just seems too much to overcome and terms that you cannot accept. But take a minute and talk through it with your agent and see what you can live with and see what you need to change. Knee-jerk reactions are often not the best reactions when it comes to countering a real estate contract. So most of this video I've talked about the buyer turns in a contract and the seller counters. But here's one thing to remember. The buyer can also go back and counter that seller. And that's the third thing I want you to think about, is managing your expectations as you go through this countering process. At any time, either party who's on the receiving end of an offer or a counteroffer, at any time they can accept or reject or counter what they have received. So in each point of the offer and counteroffer process, you want to make sure that you're really thinking about the terms that you put down. Can you live with those terms? And can you live with the fact that the other party may not accept them? That's the risk you take in countering. It's, of course, the risk you take in presenting an offer to start with. Are these terms that I can live with? And am I okay presenting this contract and it not coming to fruition if the other party is not in agreement? So manage your expectations as you go to not only present that initial offer, but any subsequent counteroffers that may follow. I always advise my clients to go into an offer situation, a purchase or a sale, knowing what's important to them. And that's my next point. You should go in knowing timing is the most important thing for me. Price is the most important thing for me. Maintenance, not so much. I'll skip the home inspection. I know how to fix every appliance in the house. That is going to lead you to make the best counteroffer for you and to bend a little where you need to meet the other party's needs. And that's my other piece of advice. Sometimes to get what we want, we have to give the other party what they want. So when you go into this situation knowing what's important to you, you can figure out easily what you can give on to make the other side happy so the two of you can come together. There's never a one winner and a one loser in these situations. It is a matter of negotiating to a place where both parties are going to be happy and sit at the table and sign and close on the house. So as you go to counter, just always be confident. Be confident in what's important to you, what you're willing to spend, the timeline that is important to you, and other terms that can help make your offer attractive or acceptable to the other party. Have you ever countered an offer before? I'd love to hear what happened. Sometimes it takes one counter and sometimes it takes multiple to get to the right answer, and that's okay. Tell me about your experience in the comments, and if it's your first time visiting my channel, make sure you subscribe. I post videos every week, and I'd love to have you come along.